Jair might as well talk about his V-neck on the podcast. So, hey guys, welcome to another episode of our new real estate roadmap. This is a podcast for real estate agents, well, anyone really, and we talk about all the unique ways that we do business over here at the Homes by Cusi team and our guest as well. We actually had a guest scheduled for today, but I don't think he's showing up. So before that, Jair was talking about his hamburger meat coming out of his V-neck because we're all rocking Homes by Cusi t-shirts right now. You can't see it unless you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening, just imagine the glorious V-neck of Jair and his hamburger meat coming out of it. So the people you hear today, so if you listened to us before, well, welcome back. You'll know that our show is usually hosted by myself, Alex Mendel, and Jennifer Konikoff. Alex got so busy with personal stuff and work that he's stepping away for a little bit, and Jen doesn't have a voice. So, but you guys all have heard JD and Jair before, and they are going to rotate through and fill in the gaps when needed. So you can have some different voices, different yet familiar. And since we don't have our guest today, we're going to talk about something else. At our team meeting this morning, we were talking about buyer strategies. Like, what are the ways that you can make sure that your buyers, when you have them, aren't going to leave you for someone else? Yeah, we have the buyer broker, but usually there's a zero cancellation fee on that. And as we all know, that oftentimes our buyers seem to have a habit of cheating on us. So how do we stop that from happening? How do you guys stop that from happening, JD and Jair? And then I'll chime in.
You could go, Jair.
You go right ahead, JD.
Okay, well, I actually had some buyers this weekend, and you brought up something that kind of resonated with me, where you called it a U-turn Terry, and I was like, ooh, guilty. I'm U-turn Terry. I'm glued to my map. Like, my map is everything. So I'm usually trying to take a call or doing something else while just blindly following my map. And it definitely has gotten me in that predicament where I'm at the entry that's resident only, and I need to be at the other gate. So I would say that that's something I would have definitely preferred not to have happened, and something that I don't think buyer's agents should let happen. I think that definitely looks bad when you can't get into the community the proper way. And yeah, guilty as charged. Mine is because my map is my all. I just follow.
Hold on. Let's give everyone some context. First of all, what do you mean your map? You have like MapQuest?
I did. That's how I started when I drove. But no, now I have my Apple Map, my Google Maps, my CarPlay, whatever Maps is on. Apple Map.
Okay, your GPS.
I put in addresses. I even have all my listings. I will do all of them in a route, because sometimes you're fumbling and you're trying to figure out where the next one is. So I usually have them all in my Apple Maps with stops, and then it just plays out. So.
Okay, let's get a little context here. So we're in Southeast Florida, and in Southeast Florida, there's a lot of gated communities. And there's a lot of gated communities where there are multiple gates, but there's one gate for guests and real estate agents, and there's gates, like back gates for just residences and residents, for just residents. And, you know, I've been speaking the language 43 years. You think I would know that word. But anyways, so on these back gates, you have to be a resident to get into them. And even though, you know, it's gotten better, well, you know, I would say when the last time I'm trying not to sound pompous, but the last time I showed houses was like 5 years ago, and those maps will still take you to the back gate. So then you felt like the biggest idiot because they're hiring you as an expert of homes, yet you can't even figure out the gate. So that's the context there. So what I learned is it only took once or twice for that to happen. Like, oh, so now the good strategy is first off, you load up the map of each community. It's not that hard. You're already in the searches anyways and doing your information and your research on the houses. And then you see the map and you can see the entries that are there. And if you can't really tell which one is a resident gate or a guest gate, just ask the real estate agent, like, hey, what is the best gate to go through? And brownie points, if you have extra time, especially if you're newer in real estate, you will have extra time and you don't know the lay of the land, pre-drive your route. And that way you're a pro. There's zero U-turns, because truth be told, these buyers, they're going to be with other real estate agents on the side. They got some side chicks, and they're going to, and those other real estate agents are going to be making lots of U-turns. But if you do the things we talk about today, including not making any U-turns, it just sets you apart from everyone else. Right.
Yes,
I
I
Oh,
saw what
totally
someone
agree.
else said. So yeah, that's the
uh,
part where you guys chime in.
That's
well, if
okay.
we're
Go
talking about
for it.
before going out, I understand there's some things that you cannot prepare for. Friday, I get there, I put the code that the agent gave me on the lockbox, and this is why I don't like just regular lockboxes. The code wouldn't work. So I'm putting the code in again. I'm trying it out. The clients that I went out with are friends of mine, Dream 300. So there's a lot. Luckily, I can, be more open with them and not worry about them like thinking, "Oh my God, this guy's just useless." So he tries to work with it, and he's like, "No, it's not working." Luckily for us, the owner of the house went by and I told them what was happening. I tried to call the listing agent. She didn't pick up. She was in Orlando. We're in Southeast Florida. We're 3 hours away. He tried to call her. He couldn't get a hold of her, but he had a key. So he let us in. Now, on the other side, as a listing agent, how does this make you look with your client? Right? I was lucky that he was there. We were able to see the house. But in that case, I could have prepared 1,000 ways for that one, and it would have gone south either way.
Well, maybe unless you pre-drove your route and then you tried the lockbox before you went.
And we can do that for all 80 clients in one. Yeah, okay.
No, I know, I know. I listen. I know realistically that's hard to do. I'm just saying, like, if you are in this situation where you don't have a lot going on and you're not, and you did your daily task and all this stuff in the workbook we give, and you're caught up on your lead gen and this, that, and the other, and whatever, just then you can pre-drive and try it out. When I was super super slow, I did that, but but now you're at the point when you get busy that you can't. I get it. I get it. I'm just
I think
busting
for
your
newer
chops.
agents, it makes sense because, like you said, you don't have a lot going on and you want to try to wow them. So, where you're fumbling in other parts in not knowing other things, you want to make up for by looking really good at the routing and not U turning and knowing the community and being able to access it. I'd like to think that we make up for it in other knowledge that we're providing, where if we do have a U-turn, that they're kind of like overlooking the fact that we went in the wrong gate, and we can talk like I easily talked my way out of it. And I said, "Oh my God, I knew it was the wrong gate." I plugged it in my maps and I was on a call and I didn't even notice. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, you talk your way out of it. And if you know other things and you're knowledgeable, I think it makes up for it. But if you're a newer agent, I definitely think that's the way to go.
Yeah, it's a smart play because you're already on your back foot in defensive mode as a new agent. They're already kind of second guessing if they made the right decision, right? But if you're experienced and you know what you're doing, then that's just like a side note that they don't pay too much attention to. But still, doesn't hurt being a little pre-planned. So, what are some other tactics, guys? I can go all day on this topic, but I don't want to like overbear myself like I usually do on these things. What are some tactics you guys used to stand out that other real estate agents don't when it comes to buyers?
I always try to go physical and digital. So I bring a printed copy of everything we are going to see, along with a summary for the HOA, a notepad, a pen, or a pencil for them to take notes with. And everything I bring physically, I also send to them via PDF. Because some guys are more techie, or one of them likes to write, and there's always something tangible that they can go back to. So that always works out because in a lot of marriages, we always marry the opposite, right? So one person wants it and the other one doesn't. So that really really stands out.
In the physical folder, always bring at least two copies for each person, right? If you just do one feels slighted or whatever. I know it's really weird, but that's just the way it is. Oh, he gave you a copy and not me. Plus, it's just convenient for them to have two different copies on it. And of course, you'll have one for yourself. But what I mean, I can go on and on about this, but what is actually in what you send them? What are the things you're looking for to provide for them?
Well, the listing itself, and then the IMAP that you mentioned, I know in the earlier meeting, where it prints out like the school zones, it prints out the flood zone, and there's like an estimated value of the property already on there. It kind of shows a little bit of the sales history, so it gives them a little bit of a screenshot on like each property. And if they're focusing heavily on certain communities, I do a CMA of the community in general, so that they already have an idea of whether this is going to be overpriced or not, or undervalued, or kind of gauge it on the communities. When they're all over the place, it's a little bit harder because then you're printing 100 sheets of things because they don't really know where they want to be.
Yeah.
So then you kind of like help them okay, now that we like these communities, I'm going to go back and now provide a lot more information on each community that you enjoy.
What every buyer asks, right? These are the questions. And I'm actually shocked to this day that I come across real estate agents who ask me these questions as a listing agent. Because to me, it's just like, well, this is kind of common sense because clients will always ask it. And I'm not trying to be disparaging, but that's what happens. So they always ask, how old's the roof? How old's the AC? How much is the HOA? What does it include? How much is this house worth? How long has the property been on the market? They always ask those questions, right? And if they have kids, what are the school zones here? That's it. So, it only takes you 2 buyers to realize these are the same questions they ask in everyone. Why don't real estate agents just get ahead of it and find out that information for each house they're showing? I don't know why. And then if you don't know how to do that stuff, we can talk about that. But Jair wants to say something.
Something that drives me nuts is when I call the listing agent because I already did my homework and I comb through everything they put out there and it's not there. So I like to ask them and they say, well, you have to call the HOA for that. My next question, and in my head, I just say, well, are you trying to sell this home and make it easier for buyers or are you not? Shouldn't you have called and make everything available up front? Like you were saying, it just drives me nuts sometimes, especially now, condo market. If you're listing a condo, if you're looking to sell a condo to your buyers, you want to have all that information for them. Budgets, rules and regulations, minutes from previous meetings to see if they have said the A word at any time. And you can let them know, hey, there might be an assessment coming. So these are the things that you got to do to get ahead of many situations that can come across later.
Yeah, well, that's why at least for us on the HomeSpot Cusi team, to kind of flip it back on the listing side, put the listing hat on, our admins have a Q&A, a questionnaire, and a checklist of things to put inside the listings. And in that, sometimes they're missed, but we know we're not perfect. But the goal is to try to get all the information we just mentioned previously, roof, ACH, all that stuff. And also, inside, we try to attach inside of the MLS, the HOA application, the rules and regulations, and all of that. And we're also going to start with another thing where we're going to give bullet point summaries of what's inside of the rules and regs. So everything should be there, like rental rules. Can corporate buyers buy in there? All that stuff. And the idea on the listing side is we're trying to minimize the phone calls from real estate agents, right? And we're trying to be the easiest one for them to work with. Like let's just be honest, people take the path of least resistance. So on the listing side, if we can make the experience so much easier and better, not just in terms of marketing to get them to see it, but just everything behind the scenes, like super smooth to work with and professional. And then our colleagues who do what they do. Who do you think the real estate agent is going to try to lean towards and work with, right? So that's on the listing side of things. So what Jair is talking about is the agents that literally just put the minimum in there and they try to get information. They don't tell you the information and there's just a phone number for the HOA. In some cases, I get that from being on the listing side when people have very vague and very specific questions that I can't answer. They're like, oh, well, we have a pet giraffe and we don't know if they allowed, and you're like, well, I don't know either. I'm not going to call about your giraffe. You call about your giraffe, but I'll give you everything else. So I get both sides, but basic stuff, you're right, Jair, should definitely be in there. 100%.
I think it goes a
And
long
they
way
need
for
to
you
get it right.
Yeah.
Sorry, what'd you say, Jair?
a highlighter. A lot of the printouts at the MLS sheets are a lot
Yeah.
for us. Like, we see them all the time. We know where to scan and what info we're looking for. Buyers, if you're showing them 5 houses and you have, front and back 10 sheets, I highlight square footage, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, if HOA fee, and also the water heater, the roof, and the AC if it's there. So they expect, and it gets to a point that by the second time we go out, they know that what they're getting, and their eyes specifically start scanning the highlighted parts of the paper.
That's a smart play. Move their eyes around the sheet.
Yeah.
So also, let's be real about it. In this day and age with technology and information so easy to obtain, a lot of times, if not all the time, the buyers, they give us, they have the list of homes that they want to see, right? And they know more about those properties than us. What they're using us for is to organize everything, give them things that they can't find easily or they don't know where to look, like permits and codes and roof age and, just stuff like that they can't find easily. And also they're looking for us to help negotiate good terms for them. So you're right about that, Jair. It's a really smart play to see what they typically ask questions for, highlighting the sheet so they have it on there. But just remember, if they're literally, and this happens so often in real estate, if what you're doing as a real estate agent is simply just printing up sheets that they can do themselves and then just opening doors, then you're not really doing any value for them. So of course they're going to cheat. So let's talk about the things that we do or should do to kind of make sure that doesn't happen. We already covered it before, get the permits and all that, but let's walk through the process. So when you have the houses that you want to see, let's say there's 6 of them, right? You're going to go see 6. And by the way, you should pre-manage expectations with your clients that you shouldn't see more than that in one shot, because then that's a lot. Even 6 is a lot. But you got to think of, first thing is the route. So you have to consider the route that benefits your clients. So if, for example, they work on 18th and University or whatever, and they're going to come home from work and then they want to go looking for homes, you don't do the first home 18 miles away, right? What you want to try to do is get the first home and the last home by their house. So you do like a big loop. That way they can quickly and comfortably get to the first one. They get a quick win, and then we can naturally take a course where it leads them back to their house so they can get back their house quickly. You don't create the path that is more desirable for you. You do it for your client, and you let them know, hey, the reason why we're doing this because I want to make sure it's just a smooth transition for you. So that's why we're going in this order, right? To avoid any zigzags. So topically, that's just one thing right off the bat. Now, there are some people out there who will go, what you need to do is do the best house first, and then from there go less and less and less and less desirable till you get to the least desirable. And the idea there, which I don't even know if it's true, is that they will be so excited. They see one house and they get so excited about it and they love it. And they go, yeah, but if this is so great, there has to be other great ones. And they go to the next one. It's not as nice. It's not as nice. It just gets worse and worse and worse. So eventually when you go out looking for them, they know that the best one's the first one you go. Right. I don't even know how real that is. I never went with that method. I always went with the convenient method because they're going to want to see all houses either way. But I wanted to say that because I know other people probably have heard that. Have you
I
guys
heard
heard that
it's first or
strategy?
last. That people usually remember either the first house or the last house. So if you think that one's like, so pick your starting point. Like I don't pick my starting point unless it really makes sense. Like they're really tight on time. I don't pick my starting point based on what's closest to them. And I don't necessarily do a circle. I might just do a line in one direction, but I definitely do them in order. So we're not wasting time. And then sometimes I do figure out which one I think they really want to see and make sure we start or end in that particular one.
I always try to ask them, where are they coming from? Because one of them might be coming from work, the other one from home. And by asking these questions to them, sometimes in their answer, they give you other things. Well, I own my own flower shop. I don't know. Like now you can also make mind notes, like where do they work? What do they do? What do they like? So later on in the transaction, you may spoil them or surprising them, giving them something that you learn from them by asking them these questions or taking that into consideration. You say, hey, listen, I know you're coming from this part of town. I know there's traffic at this time. I've planned to do it like this. Does that work? And they're like, oh,
Yep.
wow, thank you for thinking about that. I wouldn't have thought about it. So yeah, they help definitely make you stand out and look better, so you're not just opening the door and closing the door.
That's a really good segue for kind of the next point is just be aware. So you'll notice when you first go out with them that they're drinking, I don't know, maybe it's like Diet Mountain Dew or something, just something I thought of. Then, next time you are planning your route, and be smart about your time frames, right? Always leave like a little gap and stuff because things move around. But you would be smart about it. Like if like, let's say a Wawa or something or a gas station is on, after like the 4th house, and you have a little extra time, you can be like, hey, let's just stop here for a quick second. I need to get something, right? And you can come out with that Diet Mountain Dew and give it to them. Like, it's just little things like that do go a long way. And I'm like, oh, thanks. I'm like, yeah, I saw you drinking one yesterday, so here's another one. I saw it, thought of you, blah, blah, blah.
I've done coolers with iced water bottles and like some popcorn snacks or something, knowing if we have a really long day that they're probably not thinking about it, and I'll pack it in the car. Like if I have someone that's like, hey, I'm in town for today, like I'll kind of do that. And I try to schedule like a little bit of a break in between, knowing that they're probably going to be a little exhausted when it's too long of a day.
Yep.
And then how about the first time? Do we deal with the fact that we don't know how slow or fast they go at a property? So you're like, okay, are they the kind that take 30 minutes or 5? So you're trying to time them until you get to know them. I try to do a listing agent accompanied to start, right? And I give myself a few extra minutes. Like if I tell them 10, it's really like 10:15. And then I try to add a lockbox one somewhere in there so that I can make up for time or skip altogether if I need to, because we're too behind because we're too slow. And then by the second time, you've figured out their MO, and it's a lot easier. But there's a lot of angst that goes in the first showing.
Well, in general, so when we have this conversation a lot with sellers, especially the ones who are very hands-on and very on top of it. So when buyers, so like let's say a buyer schedules an appointment to show their house at like 6 o'clock or something, right? And they either get there like 6:15 or 6:30 or whatever, and then there are some types of sellers that be like, hey, it's not cool that they were late or they had to this and that. And I have to explain to them, like, listen, like this is kind of how it works, is that they have 8 or 9 houses, right? And as they're showing the houses, other sellers are canceling, or the buyer is late, or the kid needed to pee, or they were really fast at a showing and they had this extra time. So they rescheduled to show other properties, but that put them behind for yours. There's a lot of balls in the air and moving parts that happens behind the scenes that it makes it almost impossible to hit every single appointment on time, because it's not the real estate agent. They usually, for the most part, a lot of professional agents have this structured out properly. It's the third party things they cannot control. Oh, I'm running late. Oh, my dog got sick. And then think about it. So if a dog is sick or someone's running late by 20 minutes, what do you have to do as a real estate agent? And you have 7 homes. You now have to call each one of those 7, right? And push them all back. But what if number 4 can't accommodate? And they're like, yeah, I can't do that, but you can come earlier. Now you reorganize for the first 3, but now you got to take the 4th one, put them in front, and call the first 3 again and say, hey, sorry, I know I just did this, but I need to push you back, right? And you're doing all of this on the fly on your phone with a piece of paper and a pen, and just trying to make it all smooth as possible. So if you're a seller hearing this, there's some grace that goes on there. And also as real estate agents, we kind of explain that and manage the expectations. We've all been there where we are.
And it's always the late showings.
The what?
It's always the late showings. Like there is not a 5:30 showing that anybody's ever on time for, because they don't calculate traffic accordingly, either the buyer or the agent, or somebody's always late because it's prime time traffic hour.
And if there's a gate, there's a long line at the gate to get in.
Yeah, I'll tell them, look, they're 5:30. It may not be our 5:30. So we got to take that into consideration. But I always use these little, maybe friction points, if you will, to stand out. Most of our fellow agents are not calling a listing agent or texting a listing agent saying, hey, by the way, something changed. I wanted to give you a heads up that I will be 15, 20 minutes late, just so you can tell your seller. Especially if it's a property that we can tell right by now, like this place looks nice. These guys might like this one. We may need to start building that connection with the listing agent, that rapport. They're like, hey, look, this guy's considerate. He calls me. He lets me know. He communicates. Working with him through a contract might be a good thing for me. And then you're standing out as a professional.
Yeah, that is true. If you make things easier, then you want to work with them more. And there's also, if you're selling a house, something that happens too is, and again, we can't control, a agent will schedule a time and then they will either just not show up or something. And then we'll reach out to, or they'll come at a different day. Like they'll come the day before and just randomly go in the house. And I know this sounds scary. And what they often say is, oh, I thought it was vacant. I didn't know. Even though that, they should follow the schedule, because even if it is vacant, maybe you had a bug guy going or repair work going, or maybe you had a guest over or something. But then we've all had this as real estate agents where people showed up at the totally wrong time, hours before, after, or different days. And our sellers are living there and they're like, what? And you reach out to them and they're like, oh, sorry, we thought it was empty. Unfortunately, that exists. And there's not much we can do about it. Well, there isn't. We have no idea. How would we know? But we can just try our best to stay on top of it on the listing side. But in addition to that, not doing U-turns and being late and all that, and scheduling appropriately. So, and we mentioned some things to do. So now you have your list of homes and you have the order that you want to go. The next thing is you confirm the appointments, obviously. And there's a very specific system I do. I don't know what you guys do, but I put them in order. I actually have them here. I have my version here. I put them in order and I staple them. Well, if I had staples, I'm out of staples. And then I will put the times where I'll try to schedule them. And there's different ways that you could try to schedule. There's showing time, which is online. Some agents like to be text. Some agents like to be called. And guess what? When you're scheduling 6, you might get a hold of 1 or 2 the first time. So now, because you only have 1 or 2, you don't know if the ones before, in the middle, or after are going to confirm. right? So now you're like, okay, what do I do here? And so I try to leave gaps and I leave as many notes as I can. And then when I confirm, I check it off with the time and all that. And after all that's done, what I then do is I go in and answer the questions that the clients want answered. How much is this house worth? I'll go into different sites like RPR and even like homes.com and realtor.com and a Zestimate and all that stuff, or just do a basic look at the comps, not diving in too deep because it might be a waste of time. And then I'll give a range. This house is worth between 550 and 6. We'll know more if you're interested. I'll dive in further if you're interested in me diving further. Okay, permits, AC, roof, this age, HOA, this age, this age. And if they want schools, here are the schools. Is it pet friendly? Yeah. And I'll make sure I have all that information there. And like Jair said, first digitally and a physical copy in hand. So we're addressing all of that stuff. How long it's been on the market? How, what's the history? Was it originally listed at 6 and now it's 675? Even though that stuff is not overly important, they still ask it. So you might as well just find that. Another thing is let's say they have a kid with asthma, or maybe they have asthma or breathing issues. You can find the air quality around that area, right? So there's apps and websites for that. If shade is a thing, like some people want shaded communities because it's just cooler and more relaxing. There's actually a tree index. I think it's called treeindex.org or something like that. It's something like that where you can actually get a shaded score. And so it's just figuring out what's important, asking questions that may be important, and making sure you have all that stuff available to them. Do you guys do all that stuff? I hope so.
Well, I don't do the tree index, but I definitely, I think
cool.
knowing what's important to them is the main thing. And I think pets is one of the biggest ones. And find out if they have a motorcycle or a truck, because a lot of times associations don't allow them. So it's kind of like knowing where you're going to end up with a roadblock because you don't want to show properties for no reason anyways. Or down payment requirements. I've hit snags on communities require 20% down no matter what. You have a VA buyer and they don't care. We need 20% down. So it's knowing your buyer and then knowing what to ask.
So that perfect segue into my next tip. Thank you, JD, for that. So what I used to do before AI, because this was 5 years ago since I had to do it, and I'm taking out a buyer Friday. That's why it's top of mind. I used to take the HOA rules and regs, and I used to read through it, and I wouldn't trust the MLS, because you just can't. You got to do it yourself. And I would go through it and just kind of get the bullet points of what the HOA does, what it covers, and all that stuff, right? But now what's really cool, you can just download the rules and regs and application from the MLS, and then you can pop it into ChatGPT, and you can just say, hey, give me the important bullet points of this community, like rental restrictions, pet policy, age restrictions, are the country club memberships, information, this, that, and the other. And then it'll spit out, actually, I don't know if you guys see this on YouTube. This is, it'll spit out a one pager, and you provide that for each of the homes. No one else is doing that. No one else is offering that service, right? And it just goes a long way for becoming a professional, because they're going to ask a lot of this stuff anyways. You might as well just get ahead of it and be a professional, as opposed to them being motivated to using someone else that will.
Yeah, and a little trade trick there for agents, because we all get busy and we're always on the run. And sometimes we're able to do these things and more. And sometimes something comes out of nowhere. It's on the market. It's hot. Your client wants to see it, and you may not have as much time. I always try to tell my clients to, at the beginning, to keep a top 3. And we always go over that from time to time. What are your top 3? And then all of a sudden, 1 became 3. And then they start, you know what? And they start telling you, hey, you know what? This one's number 1 now. This is definitely number 1. Look, I don't even have a 2 and 3 anymore. This is 1. And then you're able to, then now you know how much more information or work you can put into that particular property.
Yeah, that's great. On that note, your buyers will give you like a whole checklist of things that they want. And a lot of agents make a mistake of just showing homes within that checkbox, right? Like some people are like, I do not want a townhome. But then you realize the reason why they didn't want a townhome is because they wanted a lot. They wanted a fenced in yard, and they don't think they can get one with a townhome. So you got to kind of dive in deeper, right? Like, okay, what is it about a townhome? Oh, I have a dog. Da, da, da. And even if they're adamant of, I'm just using this example of no townhome, because I'm using the example because I have a listing that this works for. And subconsciously that you kind of know what their reasons are, but they're still fighting back. I would still, if you find a property that fits it, still show it. And you could be like, listen, I know you don't want townhomes. I respect that. Just entertain me on this one. Just take a look, because then we can at least see what the options are, because a townhome might be 100 grand less and you still get everything you need. Right.
That's happened to me with the
So
view. I want to be on a golf course, but then you dig a little deeper and you show them things and you ask them questions. They really wanted a nice green view, not necessarily to be on the golf course. And that only came out by you going that extra mile and making that little uncomfortable question of saying, listen, I know you said this, but I found this and I think it might work. Just follow me for a sec. Oh, you know what? This actually works out.
they probably didn't. Yeah, they probably just didn't want a back neighbor too. They didn't want to look back into someone's house, right? Privacy thing. So
I
if
start with
that's
non-negotiable. Go.
what?
Nope. I said I start with non-negotiables. I asked non-negotiables.
Yeah. Well, what if it's a privacy thing too? Another step you can go further. Like, let's just say you kind of work your way into that scenario, then you can kind of lean more into cul-de-sac lots or end of street or corner lots, right? These are and you can bring that up like, hey, I know you love privacy. I found a really cool a corner lot, one that I think you're absolutely gonna love. It's about 20 grand more than we want to spend, but we might be able to negotiate it down. It'll be a shame not even to try, right?
Which brings me something there. When you hear these things and they answer questions, and you know that they have two dogs and they love them, but this house has no fence, how fast can you get a fence estimate number for them?
Smart.
Or a
Perfect.
roof. Now, roofers now can do it through Google. Like, listen, I know that, we're looking for this, but this has everything except a roof. Here's a roofing quote, and this is how much it will cost. Boom.
Yeah. So handling with buyers, I mean, we just did a great little session on it for 32 minutes. It's basically just staying organized, being available and reliable, not trying to figure out exactly the best path to take, allotting time in between to adjust for any last minute changes, and handling it professionally. By the way, don't be a panic Pete. And then also having all the information that they can possibly ask already delivered right in their fingertips, so they never have to ask you, and you're never like, but if you ever get a question that you don't know, own it. And that's what I'm going to say to anyone. Well, that's with anything really, but you just own it. Be like, no, I don't know. Let me find out. Last tip on buyers. Actually, I have a couple of my gear here. I got to remember to put in my buyer's bag. I have tools. I got a mortgage calculator. I have a moisture reader. I have a digital thermometer, and I have an outlet tester, right? And you're like, oh, why the hell? Like, you look like the bat belt. No, you don't bring it into each showing. But if you're at a house and you notice like possible moisture on a wall or something, go to your car, go into your bat bag, and grab your moisture reader. And mind you, I don't know where the back of this is. I haven't used it in years. But you find your moisture reader, and then you'll be like, okay, oh, it's 0% moisture. It's a dry thing. It's not a thing anymore, right? Not a big deal. Oh, crap, there's 80% moisture here. And then you can be smart about it. Okay, well, what's causing this? Is it under a window? If it's not under a window, does a sprinkler spray at it from the outside? If so, adjust the sprinkler head. These little things, like, people recognize as a professional who sees things, and they appreciate that. So anyway, so get yourself a moisture reader and all these other things.
Tape
And
measurer you failed to mention.
what's that?
Tape measurer.
I do. I have a laser measure. I use
Yeah,
that.
because people will be like, oh, I can't fit my king size bed in here. And I'll be like, bet it, you can.
Bet it.
You can. Because it looks so much smaller vacant sometimes, and they don't understand how much they can really fit in a space. I find that the tape measurer, like, yes, look, your king bed would go right here.
Yeah, I have those two things you guys mentioned. I keep them in the car at all times, just because you never know when you need them.
Just reminded me, I need to throw this in my car. I'm gonna put it right here so don't forget.
And I get
so there's a
closed
bunch of
sales
tips.
a lot. I get asked for closed sales a lot because it's what you can't find on Zillow. I get the clients that are focused on a building and they're like, I really want to know what's going on in this building. And I see what's active. I see what's available, but Zillow doesn't show them closed and what it closed for. So that's why I like to do the little comps thing, because it's kind of like, I can only get those. You can't get those.
I just realized I don't have a updated buyer training inside of the training portal yet. I'm just going to put this recording in there. I think we covered everything. It makes it easy.
Something, well, right before, I guess what's a lot that's new and a lot of agents don't know how to handle is the beginning, right? Signing that exclusive representation agreement.
I did my first one today. I don't know if I did it right. What are some
I
details on
have
that?
it for you. I have that. I have it for them.
Oh, you do already?
Yeah.
Oh, I just took the one that was on dot loop supplied by the board and had them sign it. But so now we have
And
two.
they did sign already? Because I already
Uh,
had them sign.
oh, I don't even know. I guess it doesn't matter. I don't have to push it. I just sent it and
Okay.
moved on.
Yeah, yeah. It is an awkward conversation now. And I think it's more awkward for people that have been in the business longer because it's not muscle memory for us. We already have a rhythm of how we do things when we meet with the buyers. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, but I got to do this. Where if you're a newer agent and this is the only thing you know, then it's just part of like your process.
Let me
I
ask you.
struggle with it.
Let me ask you something on that. This is the first time I had to ask what compensation was, and I did it today. And there was a couple that gave. Well, there was one that gave a very low amount. Even if they say that, it's still you can still negotiate higher, right? When you make an offer.
Yes, but you have to update it then because the discrepancy comes if you sign at 2.5 and the seller is offering 3 and they don't match. And then you have to go back to the buyer and say, hey, I want to change this to 3. You might get a buyer saying, well, I want that 0.5%. You weren't even expecting it.
Yeah.
So
No, but you look at it the other way, Chris. You're saying that you called and they say, well, we're offering, I don't know, half a point. Whether you can still send an offer and with your offer, a higher real estate fee.
Correct.
Yeah, you can because
oh,
everything's
okay.
Well, that's what I'm going to do. And then, so I reckon. So basically, just asking the ask, and then you make you offer anything you want. It's like in commercial real estate, you do a letter of intent, and inside of your letter of intent, it's a form of an offer. You have compensation to broker in there. So I guess it's kind of like that. This is like our letter of intent is our offer of what you want. So I guess no matter what she says, I'm still gonna ask for a lot back, right? Because now it's in the contract and the seller sees it. And here's a tip on that: you always offer more. Ask for more. I shouldn't. Maybe if other realtors I negotiate with hear this, but you always ask for more than you're willing to take, right? Even if it's crazy high, because then when you negotiate down, you hit your mark, or at least you get very close to it, right? So if you're willing to take, so you're not supposed to, JD, just so you know, you're not supposed to say like specific numbers anymore. So let's say if you are asked if you wanted to get 3.5 potatoes, then you would ask for 4 potatoes, right?
Right.
And so and then hopefully they come down to like no, and then they'll give you 3 potatoes, and then you're happy, right? So anyway, just a step, because if in negotiations, if you just say what you want, they're going to negotiate it down. So say above, they'll initially be shocked and upset and annoyed, and I'm like, all right, well, just give me this then, you know. Just some tips and tricks on that stuff. Always negotiate crazy.
I haven't encountered that like super low seller offer though. It seems like sellers kind of understand the market that we're in and are navigating through it
Well,
accordingly.
I'm showing 4 on Friday, and one of them is fair, and the other 3 are actually what I feel slightly below fair. Like, and in this market, and this is also a country club, and they're on the market for a while. I'm like, that's just dumb. Like, why would you do that? Would you offer a normal compensation so it would be more motivated?
And to your point, that also sends a message, right? Because think about it, put it together. You're not moving, you're not offering something good. Then the time that someone does come and shows up, they see that. They see that, oh, you still want to sit around? You still want to offer low? Well, I have someone that wants it. And here is my offer. And I'm going to ask for more. And I know you have no other options. So let's
Yeah.
dance.
But it also tells buyers agents too, is that the seller might be difficult, right? They might not be realistic, and it might create a situation up front of a preconceived notion, whether if it's accurate or not. If that you might be someone that you don't want to make an offer or work with, or you have to be aggressive with because they're aggressive too. You know, so it's just a
3
thought.
weeks ago, we got kicked out of a house. First time it happens to me. The
What?
seller showed up and she goes, and this has a lot to do with setting expectations and educating your sellers.
Okay.
My buyers were there a while. Seems like they loved the place. They were walking it up and down. They said, can we look at it again? I said, sure, take your time. The seller comes in and she goes, listen, I've shown this a ton of times. No one has stayed here as long as you have. And I think it's enough. We have
That's so
things to
stupid.
do. I think you should leave.
Wow.
Um, I was just looking at her like, okay, maybe you don't
That
want
is
to tell
so
me. I didn't say
stupid.
anything. I said, look, thank you for your time. I'll let my clients know that we have to go. Have a good one. And my
Yeah, but
client liked the place, but they came out and they're like, look, I don't want to deal with this, something like that ever again. And even though they liked the place, they never mentioned it again. And I told them, well, you see, what can I tell you? What you see is what you get.
real
You
estate's
don't want to give her
emotional
your
game.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want to give her your money. At that point, you're like, I don't care how much I like this house. I don't want her to have my money.
I'd rather drive around 3 more weeks to find a house, you know? Yeah.
I found something bigger and better, but yeah, we got thrown out.
Yeah, real estate's
Oh.
emotional game. You know, you got to be smart about that. You know, like they're in your house for a while for a reason. You're trying to sell, they want to buy, give them another 15 minutes. Like, but anyways, whatever.
Oh, something else to note is pay attention if there's cameras in the property.
Oh, good point.
Sometimes these vacant ones have cameras and you're talking and you're yapping away. And, you know, as a buyer's agent, I like to point out a lot of the positives in a property, any of the upgrades and things like that. But I also don't want to sound like I'm selling every home because not every home is sellable. So sometimes, you know, there's negative things that need to be pointed out.
Yeah, and
And
people do make comments, like especially now in a political climate, if someone has a certain book or a flag or something up, you know, they'll say something or it'll just turn people off, and then they'll say something that's caught on camera, or they'll talk bad about the sellers and their like whatever and their statues or their decor. You know, that does happen. So I often have to be like, when I remember these the day, even it's been a while. There were cameras then. I'm like, let's go wait. And we also on the seller side, we have clients that go, oh yeah, I was listening on the Ring camera to what they were saying. You know, like
right. And sometimes, and I mean, sometimes for a buyer, they might just be saying, oh my God, I love this place. What can we get? You know, and all of a sudden you showed your cards. Like it could come from a very nice place. It may not be like they're talking bad about anything and you don't want them to know that. So I'm always like, pay attention. There's a camera.
do not tell sellers or sellers agents, dear buyers, do not talk to them or show emotion or anything. Poker face, 100%. Right? It's like, just something to do. All right, we are coming up to our end. We did have a guest today, but he didn't show up. So I'll reschedule him. But I think we improvised very, very well. And now I'm kind of sort of more excited to show houses on Friday and Saturday.
Woo.
Woo.
No, it's fun. I like showing houses. I like seeing new houses. You know, like I actually enjoy going through and seeing what's out there and like just what's different. So
I don't.
call me crazy. I know. I actually like looking at homes, but
I don't. Well, not that I don't like looking at homes. I'm high D like you, JD, which I'm surprised about this. We don't like wasting time. And I'm not knocking working with buyers. I love all of my people, but let's be totally real about the business. And this might get me in trouble, but let's be real about it. You can service and provide extreme amount of value for 20 sellers and the same amount of time and effort for 3 buyers. And if there's 20 sellers, 19 of them are going to sell. And since this is the business, that's important. And out of those 3 buyers, maybe 1 out of 3 will, right? A buy.
oh, yeah, I understand it's not business minded,
It's,
but
yeah. And this is a
I
business.
actually don't mind. Like I enjoy looking at them, and the best thing is to see a before and an after when somebody does buy, and I'm like, oh my God, send me what it looks like now. I'm so excited. I actually like houses.
Yeah, what I do is to kind of like to help the whole thing with this, everything you guys are mentioning. Before we even go, we have a Zoom meeting like we're having now. I share my screen with them and they say, we want Boca. So I show them Boca on the MLS. We want a 4, 2.5 in Boca. So I changed those. Now the universe is like this. We want a 4, 2.5 in Boca with a pool. And whoop, the list goes like this. So they see the universe shrinking in front of them and they see that what the market looks like in reality, what their options are. We can take a look at them online, and then we were going to go see 8. Now we're only looking at 3 because they
I
already.
can't believe I missed that, because that is one of the biggest things that I did forever. What he's saying is that before you go out, you work as a team together online as a Zoom or a Google Meet. You're sharing your screen and you can walk through the process. He's right. Oftentimes they'll send you a laundry list and it's like, yeah, I'm never going to find this unicorn. And then what happens is you try to find a unicorn. It doesn't exist. They move to someone else to try to find that unicorn. But if you bring them along on the process of the actual searching together, online, then it just changes the dynamic. So I can't believe we forgot about that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
That's
Thank
actually
you.
great, Jair. We do the listing presentations with videos. I've never turned it around with the buyer and had them. It's always like the back and forth communicating, going, hey, you went from 98 to 62 because you did that, or, whatever the numbers are. And I kind of let them know that way, but it's not in real time. It's not as impactful. That's a really good idea.
JD, what you
Do
just
it
told me
live
is
or I record a video?
you never went through the buyer training and coaching by Cusi.
What? I think you're breaking up. I think
Exactly.
you're breaking up.
But that is in there. But I just happened to forget about it. So I appreciate you, Jair, for saying that. Actually, so I'm doing that. Okay, real quick. Let's wrap up here. 7:00. I do have a buyer consultation on Friday, another one, and it's on Google Meets, like Zoom. It's on that. So my advice to you guys, and this kind of segues for what's happening tomorrow, is to create a Calendly account. And what happens is, someone, either a buyer or a seller, you'll have two different types of meetings for them: seller consultation, buyer consultation, and you send them the appropriate link. But a buyer or seller would be like, "Hey, I want to discuss whatever," and you're like, "Okay." Instead of going, "Do you have this, 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 and this?" You're like, "Okay, no problem. Here's my availability to send you a link." And inside of that calendar, they'll automatically get your Google Meet join. So they just click that and join, and you do a consultation from your computer. So definitely do that. And the reason why segues into tomorrow, well, depending on when you're listening to this, if you're listening to this on April 30th, 2025, tomorrow we're teaching, it's Google Day. So twice a year I teach Google Day on the training, where we talk about Google lead services and how to rank organically on Google. And one of the ways that you do that is you have a Calendly appointment set in your Google business profile. It just helps out the algo a little bit. So that's what I got.
Noted.
Good
I'm adding
stuff,
that.
guys.
Yeah.
Look at that. We impromptu and we actually knew what we were talking about, and we did it. All right, my friends, we will see you on the next episode. And you can always find JD Sanchez, Jair Reategui Babui on Instagram.
It's an easy one. Reategui. 4 syllables.
I still can't spell your name, but it's all good. And Chris Cusimano, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.
See you.
Take care.